For October 2018, I selected Pathwork Lecture 133, which is Love, not a commandment, but a spontaneous soul movement of the inner self. My attempt is to build on previous monthly topics to explore different aspects of not only the Pathwork Lectures, but of ourselves. So this builds on the work of Pathwork Lecture 93 and 94 of the Real Self, and also on Pathwork Lecture 11, which was an exploration of self-knowledge, inner guidance. So in this month, or in this topic, I divided it into 4 sections again. The first is the power of love. The second is 2 basic misunderstandings. The third is distortions forming a foreign body. Explain in a moment. And the fourth is feeling all our feelings. So in the first section, the guide describes love in a way that some people are going to have a hard time imagining. The guide describes love as all-powerful, as having the capacity to make enormous change. The trick here is it has to be love, not an attempt to love. It needs to be love, not an attempt to get something done through love. That being loving needs to be worked on, studied, brought forward for its own sake. And the guide describes what would naturally happen once it is. So, as part of this exercises, I suggested some questions. And one is, do you believe in love? Do you believe that love has power, or do you doubt it? If you doubt it, bringing up other sections of this topic, that needs to be explored first. If you truly doubt, then you're not going to be able to put all your energy into surrender to the power of love. So it doesn't matter where you start from, but we need to know where you are. We need to know. You need to know where you are. So one of the questions is, do you believe that love can have this power? In another place, the guide suggests you don't have to believe it, but it is important to allow for the possibility. So another question would be, I don't believe it, but do I believe in the possibility that love has a great power? Another question is, how do you manifest love? Do you manifest love? Do you say it but not act it? When I say manifest, I mean act it out. Bring it into your life. Behave in a loving way to the most casual, banal, inconsequential aspects of your life. Can you be loving to strangers? Can you be loving to family when there might be disagreements or previous dynamics that are difficult? We can be loving and stand our ground. We can be loving and still put forward a point of view that is not accepted by others. There's no contradiction between these two. The power of love is that it can be detected if something is loving, so that a loving suggestion may be more accepted or may not create as much argument as a suggestion that is supposedly based on love but really isn't. Based more on, I want to get my way and I want to include you and I want to say the right words, but I'm not feeling love in this moment. So, do you believe? How do you manifest your belief? And then, how do you exercise love in your daily life? It sounds odd, but I suggest that people keep a log of how many times during a day they felt loving. It can be humbling to find out that we were only loving, or we can only remember being loving once or twice. It can also be gratifying to realize that we did have a dozen times a day where we felt loving. and to contemplate making it 24. So whether or not you find only 1 or 2 or a dozen, one of the premises is that you need to know where you are before you can really improve something. Section 2, week 2, is on 2 basic misunderstandings. And one is about love, or why you can't be loving, or why love doesn't appear in your life. And the first is that you're living in illusion, meaning that your focus is on the superficial layers of your personality. Now, that particular phrase comes from the work that was done in Patrick Lecture 11, which is about self-knowledge, inner knowledge. So when we are in the superficial layers of the personality, we're not in our divine selves. We're not listening to our inner voice. We're listening to the dualistic qualities. I have to have this. I want that. I won't get this. I have an urgency. I have a deadline. Those are all the superficial layers of our personality. And when we operate from that, then it's difficult to operate from love. Love doesn't generate from that place. It informs that place, but it is not generated there. The second aspect that can create misunderstanding is underestimation of the self. Now, perhaps that sounds paradoxical, but when we underestimate ourselves, when we believe that we aren't competent or that we aren't deserving, it is difficult to be loving. To be loving is to open your heart. If you believe your heart is wrong, inferior, damaged, can be rejected, you're not going to open it. So again, these 2 basic misunderstandings. One is living in illusion, living in duality, living in superficial levels. It's going to be difficult to access a loving feeling from that place. And secondly, by believing that we are inferior, we will block our capacity to love. The guide says that both are hostile to you personally. A sense of inferiority is a condemnation of yourself. It does not serve you to condemn yourself. It is our job to examine, explore, and address and correct ourselves where we are in error. It also creates barriers to our ability to love, these 2 misunderstandings. The third section talks about how distortions can feel like they are a foreign body. Now, as many of you, I'm involved with various other aspects of my life that have nothing to do technically with pathwork. And a few of those are impinging on me this weekend, and I'm feeling stressed. And when I feel stress, it's as if there's a lump in my chest. There's a tension in my chest that I just can't get rid of. I can do breathing exercises. I can try to relieve it. There's a lot of things I can try to do. But my point is that it feels like there's a congestion in my chest of stress. Some of us can feel this as if there's a lump in our throat. The guide is suggesting that when we are engaged with distortions, that they can actually feel like a foreign body. Now, this is a good thing, because if you can feel it, then you may be able to address it. Coughing a lot lately in these presentations. And the guide suggests a phrase for working with this. And he says, if I am in disharmony, somewhere in me, there must be a misinterpretation. I wish to see the truth. If I resist, I declare that my will to be in truth is stronger than the resistance. It's a simple meditation. It's in the study guide. I'm going to repeat it. If I am in disharmony, somewhere in me there must be misinterpretation. I wish to see the truth. If I resist, I declare that my will to be in truth is stronger than the resistance. Then the guide suggests that you acknowledge your present state versus running away from it. See if you can tell what you're afraid of, where you are in duality, where you're afraid that something is terrible that may or may not be, that just may be something you don't want to happen. So to make a statement, not of I am perfect or I will be perfect, to make a statement of I need to see this, I want to see this, and I'm going to look for assistance from myself to listen quietly to see what the truth is. Inside this is a paradox. In the lecture is described as the paradox of surrender. Surrender is commonly misinterpreted as submission. Submission is giving in. It's giving up. It's just backing away. You can have it. I can't fix it. You can have the consequences. But surrender, which is described at length in Pathwork Lecture 254, is more about agreement. I may not understand everything involved, but I think I sense wisdom here, and I will surrender to the greater wisdom. I will surrender to things I don't fully understand. I will do so carefully, and I will watch and wait and see, so that what I'm doing is still honest and in integrity, and not just a matter of you can have it, I give up. So there's a big difference between surrender and submission. In true surrender, we give over to the possibility that there may be something we don't understand that is influencing our decision. And we perhaps ask ourselves, as a meditation, as a prayer, that we be allowed to see it. The last section, the last week, I titled Feeling All Our Feelings. And the invitation in this section basically is the more you know yourself, the more you are in control of yourself. That seems so obvious. I had a career for a while as a business troubleshooter, turnaround professional. And if you go into any situation with the desire to address it, to fix it, the first thing you have to know is what's going on. That's just a given. You don't go in with a superimposition of ideas. You have to look at what is and see where it's gone astray, what can be done, what stage is it in, where are the weaknesses, where are the strengths, and how can you realign. Same thing is due to working with ourselves, to self-knowledge, to self-development, to self-purification. We need to know about ourselves so that we can take control of our lives, meaning not control our lives and not determine what's going to happen, but enable ourselves to be self-responsible, to make decisions that are in alignment with our values, and to attempt to understand what is going on so we can support the positive and address the negative. That's the kind of control we're talking about here. So to exercise that kind of control, we have to know where we are in error, where we are in illusion. So these are the 4 sections of Pathwork Lecture 133 that we're going to be studying in October of 2018. I hope you take a look at the original lecture, which can be downloaded from pathwork.org. And the study guide is available on my websites. Thanks for listening.